and uploading it. Done? I think. Okay, well, good morning, everybody. This is the Language of Consciousness Institute team, and we wanted to meet today to talk with Victoria about the recent trip that she has had to UK, Glastonbury, and Ireland. We have all been in the process of experiencing a lot of energetics and shifts in our system. And so we're very interested in what occurred on her trip, because we know that we operate as a field. And in that field, we're impacted by whatever occurs by those who are in. So Victoria, you had just said, just before we started this call, that something very significant happened at Chalice Well in Glastonbury. Could you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So this journey that took 8 of us specifically to Glastonbury, and then some of us on to Ireland, to be with the energy, the beings, the communities, and experience ourselves in relationship to began by flying into Dublin, Ireland, and then ferrying across the Irish Sea to UK, and then taking our cars to Glastonbury. And very quickly after settling in, the next day, we spent the morning in connection with a beautiful woman from UK that introduced us to the Chalice Well, the Red Spring, that's connected to the White Spring that Kea in our field is caretaker of. So they're basically right across the road from each other. And they're said to be carrying the energies of the masculine and feminine, so that these two springs could be reunited, was part of what we were paying attention to. So significant, I think, for me to share in context with the Language of Consciousness Institute is a particular listening that I had that occurred at the Chalice Well. We were in the preparations for listening to a talk about Chalice Well and the 2 yew trees that reside and guardian over the well. One is a grandfather yew tree and the other is grandmother. So the masculine and feminine were definitely rising in the field. And we gathered in the area near the trees, and she was beginning to talk about the trees. And the energy moved in me in a way that I couldn't language what was occurring. And Anne Byrne, and Anne was holding the waters that would be poured into the well to combine the waters of Ireland and UK from the various springs. Actually, let me rephrase that. I was holding the waters, and
Oh.
Anne was standing next to me, and something just rose in me that I felt compelled by. I handed Anne the waters, and I walked, I don't know, maybe 5 paces into the grassy area near the grandmother tree, and I just dropped down on my belly to be with whatever was moving in me. That I had no idea what was occurring. I was moving with creation, moving the body. And I began to sob in sheer delight in being connected to these yew trees energetically. They were reaching their tendrils towards me, to my chest, heart, belly, solar plexus, my whole being. I just felt like their tendrils underneath the earth just came up and embraced me as I was laying on the earth. And so the term pedaling became a term for our 2-week adventure, because that was the beginning of my pedaling. It was tears of joy, tears of sorrow, tears of remembrance that just came in connection with. And the reason I share it is because after a bit of time in that moment, one of the other members, Myra, came over and laid down face up beside me and just placed her hand on my lower back. I was in so deep, I couldn't even recognize the physicalness of the person next to me until I opened my eyes and looked and realized who was being with me. And then I went straight back into the embrace of the yews. And I stayed there for a bit of time. And then the energy of me, it just like popped back into, like I was back into the moment of where I was, kind of suddenly. And it was awkward, not only for me, but for others observing. And I wasn't really clear why it occurred the way it occurred. So throughout the day, I just carried this experience and not really understanding, walking with mystery, as Ann B. said, for 2 weeks, just walking with the mystery of it. I couldn't put language to it. I could feel my sentient registers physically, emotionally, this sense of remembrance. And later, what I really discovered was I was in a recall moment of connection.
Mm.
And what occurred for me later that I think is so significant is that I gave myself time to be with it and not knowing what was occurring, except being in this deep connection with nature, but with every part of my being in connection with the world around me, the people I was with. I just knew I was a part of everything. And then when I went to write about and put language to it later in the evening, I discovered I couldn't find the typical words. And what just innately happened is I wrote a template 6, moving with creation, because I recognized that's what I was doing. I was moving with creation, and my mental mind didn't have words to describe what my body, my emotions, my full sentient response. I didn't have the mental mind words for it. What I did have access to was the template language. And for me, that's so significant that it seems all too often that our mental mind is struggling for words. And if we just allow ourselves, give ourselves permission to go to the templates, whichever one is called. And for me, it was moving with creation. And I wrote that template out. Beyond my mental mind language, that template wrote itself in a matter of 5 minutes. I didn't pick the words, they just came through in a flow. And it was as if I was doing an observing, writing the template 6, moving with creation. So I think that's so important to put that as the foundation for this 2-week journey, is because that laid the foundation in the body, in the emotions, in the perception of how I am a part of everything and how everything is a part and moves with me, that I could walk in the mystery pretty much the rest of the 2 weeks, whether I was in Glastonbury or in Ireland. It was continuous being in this template 6 experience as a physical being doing what I do. So I'm curious to see how that lands for you guys. What's your body experience of hearing that story? What does it bring about for you in your own remembrance of anything related to the templates or your own experiences?
I'm going to jump in because I'm writing a template 7 right now, and it's writing itself. And so I really resonated with what you said about that. And there is this flow, and I can feel it coming into the body now, just like you said. So it's new. There's no struggle or anything. It's just very aligned. And I'm looking at the language and I'm like, what? It's so cool. So I'm getting access to what my mental mind couldn't get access to, again, like you just said. So it's really exciting. I'm complete.
My experience is that when you've been sharing this,
I'm gonna.
what?
Go ahead.
Anyway, okay, is that it was a linear energy moving up through the center of my body, up and down. So it wasn't like a solar plexus that got upset or anything. It was just like an alignment feeling. Yes, I'm really so above, so below. So that whole conversation was about you really deeply moving into the mystery, into the connection with Earth. But you are always connected to above as well. And that's why you chose, I think, the moving with creation, because creation is the whole. I think it's beautiful. Do you have that template with you?
I might be able to find it.
Well,
Yeah.
Go ahead. I was just
going to say, the other thing that I experienced as you were speaking about the trees is something that happened maybe 6 months ago. I was in a conversation with Kea and about the springs, and at that time I felt the need to create some sort of an energetic matrix around the springs, both of them. And I said, there's something about the yew trees, not knowing that there, because I'd never been there, so I didn't know that there were the grandfather and grandmother trees, and those trees were calling. And so we looked at Google Earth, and I was able to see the trees. So when you said that, I'm like, cool. Oh, that must have been, I could just really feel that happening. And in relation to that, I had that experience with 2 trees just yesterday when we were doing our operation, about having the trees' roots connecting. They didn't encircle me, but I felt the connection through the roots, the communication through the roots, and felt a being with, I guess, with the roots and with the tree systems, or the being of the tree, the beingness of the trees. So it was beautiful.
Looking at. One of the things that we've been noting in the calls that have been happening over the weekend is this unity field that we're experiencing. And for a long time, we've talked about being one with another in the field, and the power of the we has come up as a phraseology. And that really came up in several calls this weekend, where we were talking about the power for the individual will come through their recognition and participation in the we, in the being in the field with the other. That, certainly in the United States, the old idea of pull yourself up by your own bootstraps, is an anathema to how people really will get all that they crave, get back to their original design. It is done with another in the field. And in this case, you just heard a big description from Victoria about the field included the yew trees and the well and all of then she kept that connection. Well, our ancestors all had that. They walked with, there's a Native American song about walking on the earth, but with the earth. And I think we've all had the experience of stepping on the earth and connecting to not just the roots of the trees, but the energy coming from the plants and the trees around us. So that, I'm listening to this and going like, that's probably our original design. That we actually have that as a natural capability every day of our lives. Walk out of our homes and be one with all the beings of nature around us. And if we're returning to that, I'm saying, rock on, let's do this. And this is just further evidence, whether, that today we hear that for the last 2 weeks, we've had a member of our field connected to the mysteries of Glastonbury Bay. So we were connected to them. And Liz and Tantra and Carol being able to be in that connection yesterday when they connected to the spiral is just, one, it feels very amazing, and I am in such deep gratitude that I could be part of a field where other members of the field can be in that, and I get the benefit of it. Every one of us gets the benefit of them making it. Maybe I don't have it as viscerally as they do, but I know that because I'm part of this field, siphon off a little bit or share it, not siphon, share it with them. Victoria?
And I want to add to what you just said about Liz being in the spiral. I was in Kaya's spiral in Glastonbury. We walked that spiral, and the magnificence of a spiral offering its access point as well, because the minute I stepped to begin to walk her spiral that she tends, I had an image which I get once in a while, but I'm not a constantly getting visual images type person. I got a visual image in my mind of the spiral of the cosmos, and it walked the spiral with me. And how I know the spiral walked me in the spiral is I just don't even know. I know my feet were on the ground walking it, but everyone said I like fast clipped it like nobody's business, and I just walked it like I was gliding through it, like I was walking on air. And I saw this spiral all the way through to the very center and all the way back out. And then when I got to the spiral at Ann T's place, I felt that spiral within me and saw her spiral in connection to the spiral in Glastonbury. So it's so much more evidence that we do have access points. And both of you have mentioned that. And one of the themes of our 2 weeks in how we paid attention, and it continues to carry me. This is like the theme that I will carry beyond the 2 weeks in my everyday existence: access and no access. When do we feel access? When do we experience ourselves in the no access? And so then in that moment where I don't have access, I tended to write observings or speak observings in my mind as I was feeling mental mind gunk in the way of the access point. Right? So it wasn't like the journey was completely walking in mystery for me for 2 full weeks. One of us did a very good job of that, right? But it wasn't me. And so the moments when my mental mind was moving towards wonky, I just recognized it as I don't have access any longer. Okay, do an observing, do a craving, whatever it is that brings you back to an access point, and start paying attention for what is that access point. In one moment, it might be somebody told the funniest joke. In another moment, it might be a delicious meal that was prepared that just brought me back to my deep sentience, my physical beingness. It might be movement, a long walk. There's lots of ways we know what gives us access. And it may be similar to other people. Like we might all have some similar access points within this group, and then we have some unique ones. So I found the template 6. Do you want me to read it?
Yes, yes. Get to soak ourselves. Look at this
Okay.
group going like, yay, we got it.
Okay. Moving with creation. C1. Moving with creation creates singular focus. Creating singular focus sustains and maintains flowering essence awakening. Sustaining and maintaining flowering essence awakening embodies reconnecting the elixir of life sensing. C2. Moving with creation creates bird song sweetness. Creating bird song sweetness sustains and maintains tender tendrils embracing. sustaining and maintaining tender tendrils embracing embodies be longing fulfilled. C3. Moving with creation creates meta-point patterning. Creating meta-point patterning sustains and maintains called in the calling. Sustaining and maintaining called in the calling embodies pulsing in stillness, becoming remembrance. CC. Reconnecting the elixir of life sensing creates belonging fulfilled. Creating belonging fulfilled sustains and maintains pulsing in stillness, becoming remembrance. Pulsing in stillness, becoming remembrance embodies true north noting.
My experience, each of those recursions had a whole different energetic pattern. I closed my eyes and just paid attention. Each one of them was different. And now the last line, it was just almost like a flowering of energy. That was amazing. Thank you so much. Others, what did you get? Lots of grins going on here. Anybody? Okay, Moto.
It's amazing, Victoria. It was truly a marvelous experience you had there, and writing that template 6 is just wonderful. And I second Electra's thought about that. That is the way that we lived once upon a time, with that deep connection to everything that is. And as I was listening to Victoria's template, I was reminded of this longing I have always felt deep in me, that for many years I thought it was the longing for a personal relationship with someone. And now I realize it's not with someone. It is this deep connection with everything that has nothing to do with the person or the people, but it has to do with this wholeness, or this, I would even call it sacredness of being one. And definitely that's what we're heading to. And it will take some adaptation and some learning to be in that way, or to unlearn what we have learned for I don't know how many zillions of years, to be separate. And so this unlearning of how to be, how we have been with others, I guess it will take a lot of template writing from this deep connection in order to get rid of all those things that no longer serve us, and really go back to that true deep connection. Oh, and those you trees. Okay. Oh, wow. That sounds wonderful. Thank you, Victoria. I'm complete.
Maru, I'd love to respond to what you said. That I think is really important to place in the whole field of this moment. in Glastonbury, I believe that something magical happened, not just for me, but for the community, and that we talk about being connected to everything. That in their Beltane festival, for the first time in a very long time, all of the community leaders that create that festival came together, honored one another, and created the maypole in a unity, consciousness, connection. And I believe it wove into the nature of the whole community, because I always felt the entire time I was there, like everybody was responding to each other in joy, in peace, in ease, that whatever may have been a part of the way things were prior, I never experienced that. I only experienced that whole system response of it's not person-centric. It's all about coming into this new way of being as a part of everything. And so I think that longing to belong in a whole system was so palpable. And the other thing I want to add is, as I was reading my own template, I'm reminded by what Tantra Mat has said to us many times over the years, that there's no difference in the physical response of the body to recognize ecstasy and agony. And so as I'm reading it, my body is in this vibration of remembering exactly where I was, exactly how it felt to be in full connection in a whole system response. And if I can do that, then whatever memories I have of a traumatic thing that may have happened to me, then I have the capacity to redefine that as well. With template writing, I can have the full body response, and I can do it in the unity of being a part of everything else instead of at the effect of it. So that really reminded me how to pay attention to our inner experience in all situations and use the templates as that access point to being in the full joy, even in the difficulty. I know it's weird to say that, but I think it's possible. I'm complete.
What I kept being touched with is wanting to go into tears, but it's tears of gratitude that we are finally back. We're finally back to something. I think, there was an innate, I don't know if Tantra read it or somebody else, but this innate longing that we've had, and Maru spoke to it, and we don't have words for it. We don't know what we need or what we want or what we're searching for, but it's there and it's calling, but we don't have language for it. And we're finally saying, oh my God, this is what we've been longing for. This is the driver that pulled us out of the reality of separation, that had us choose these paths that we're on, that in this particular group of people got us into the field of Tantra Mat and into the Language of Consciousness Institute. That's the driver. That's the driver. And the more we do what this connection with Earth, what Victoria described and Liz described, and others have described at other times, the longing will be, or will take care of us. It's no longer a searching, no longer a search to, my God, what is it that I need? What is it that I am drawn to? That I have to do this. I had somebody stop me while I was walking the dog this morning, and he says, he's got a dog too, out there every day. He says, when you make a commitment, he says, you really make it, don't you? And I said, yes. And at that moment in time, it was about walking a friend's dog, which he wasn't able to walk anymore. But I know that if my ability to be committed beyond everything, it is because of this journey this journey of longing, and I will find the answer. And I think it feels like that's cool, that we're finally at the threshold. Oh God, I'm a little puzzled. Anything else, Victoria, that you want to add?
I have so many experiences of connection with the earth and the earth beings that it's like, how do I tell you all of them in a short amount of time? So I'm like, what do you do with when you're so full? You write templates about the fullness.
And you write templates and you share them with others. One of the things that we're always telling people is read your templates. And we tell them to post it on Tap and Talk, post it up. And if those of you who are listening were as touched as we were by hearing of this template, know the power of sharing. Know the power of opening up what you experience to another, because it enlarges our full field. I think we're going to hear about Ireland and Glastonbury and UK for a while, because it's reminding all of us of our original design, what paradise was like for us at one point, and why this shock, whatever happened that threw humanity into a state of separation, was a shock. I can feel the grief of the loss of that connection, and I can feel the excitement of knowing it's coming back into all of our lives, not just in these few moments of sacred contact, but as part and parcel of how we live our lives. So thank you, audience, listening to us. This is a wonderful group of people who have done everything they could to keep these templates alive and working for you. Please contact us on the LSC website, because we are here to help you do what you heard today. Use the templates to help you give access. Victoria, thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next week on Monday.